We are on fire. Megan Miller, you are in the house. We are on. Yep, we're recording for sure. What is up? Thanks for being here. I know we just did a little conversation. We already did all this cool stuff, but what's up? How you feeling?
Hey, I didn't even get a chance to tell you. I love that sweatshirt.
Oh well, thank you. It's just I don't know, random sweatshirt. I don't even know where, but thank you though.
Isn't it nice when comfort meets fashion? I gotta tell you, looking like $1,000,000, my friend Chris. It is great to be here with you tonight.
Actually, I'm usually not a fashionista by any means. Usually, I just come from the gym doing these things. That's literally where I just got here from. So, but yeah, but thank you. I appreciate that. You made. I think you made my Thursday. But
Wonderful. I think we should all give each other some more compliments. We were talking earlier about the holidays and we can dig into that. But this is the one thing I do love about the holiday season, Chris. I
okay,
feel like you kind of write yourself a permission slip, the world does, to be kinder to each other. Like someone does something that you like, you share it, you tell them. I feel like during the holidays, everyone's just a little kinder to each other. There's a little bit more gratitude
Mm.
that only ever really happens during that time of the year.
Yeah. Well, it's it's like we said. You're supposed to be that way. So everyone decides that. Oh, I'm supposed to give a little bit more. When you see the Santa out there ringing the bell, like in front of the store, I'm supposed to give a little bit there, and just because through Thanksgiving, through I guess after New Year's, that's what you do. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, after New Year's, you're like, fuck it. Let me just go. Yeah. You're like, all right, I ain't got to do this anymore. You get annoyed when you see like somebody in front of the store asking, like the Girl Scouts, like asking for you to buy their cookies and stuff. So whatever. It's like, nah, I ain't got to give anymore. I already gave my stuff. Who cares? But yeah, but during the holiday season, you're all about it. You're like, hey, let's go volunteer. Let's go down to the food bank. Let's give to people who need it. And I'm not saying I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing that stuff, but I agree with your point though. It seems like that's what people want to do just because you're supposed to be doing it. So,
Right.
I don't understand. We can't do this 365. I mean, hey, if you're a giving person, let's do it after Christmas. Let's do it
Yeah.
after New Year's, right?
And Chris, I always think of, people do things. We see things every day in our lives, whether it's a social post, whether it's a colleague doing something at work, whether it's your partner, whatever it is, we see things all the time and we think, oh, that was nice. But we never say it because we move on to the next thing on the task list because we're so worried about getting our shit done. Like,
Mm.
I just think there's such a lesson there to say when someone does something and you think to yourself, oh my God, that was kind of cool. Or I really liked that. Or that post resonated with me. How about you just take a minute and tell them?
Do you ever feel weird when people do compliment you? Like, and it's like it's almost overdoing it to a certain extent that, you're wondering if they're being fake. It's like, did it really mean that? Especially just because, like we said this during Christmas, like you're supposed to be giving and complimenting nice to everybody and all this. But, in my experience, sometimes that when I do get certain compliments and it's kind of overzealous and over the top, it's like, wait, do you really mean what you're saying? Or are you just saying this because you think you're supposed to be doing it?
Yeah, I would say then that's inauthentic. Your bullshit meter is right on. Like if it's
Mhm.
inauthentic, don't say it. But if it's authentic, I think you can feel it. I think your gut tells you if you listen to it, you know if what that person is telling you is authentic or whether they're leaning into some ask for some shit.
Yeah.
Can I curse on this, by the way? I've
Of
been
course you can. This
okay.
is free speech. You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
I like
Oh,
you, Chris. It's the
yeah.
Northeasterner in me. It's the Philly in me. It sometimes comes out and
Really?
you can't hold her back.
Really? You born and raised in Philly?
I feel like I have been. I'm a central PA,
Okay.
a girl born and raised, very small town, and then I moved to Philadelphia. Oh gosh, about 20 years ago.
Nice. I went to Philly back in, was it 2018, 2019? That was my first time there. I'm in actually Virginia, so I'm not too far from you. I'm actually right about 3 hours from DC, maybe four.
I always like to say Philly is kind of like a used couch. It's not that attractive, but it is comfortable.
Well, I was there basically solo dolo. I mean, long story short, my mom had a conference there for her work and she didn't want to travel by herself. So I was like, I'll go. I've never been to Philly, so why not? So while she was doing her work thing, I traveled. Well, I didn't really travel. I just walked all through the city and was supposed to see all the sights I was supposed to see. But I felt good. I felt safe. I ignored what, people were kind of saying, like, oh, Philly's kind of dangerous. You should watch your back and all this. But I mean, I don't think I took myself anywhere sketchy, but I was comfortable. I enjoyed it. I had a great time there.
I love that you said yes to the opportunity. That's the other thing. Like we were talking about what we want to do in the year ahead, and that is one thing that I want to be more intentional about is saying yes to the opportunity. So quickly you have the opportunity to do something and you're like, "No, I'm busy. I don't feel like doing that." No, no. You say no before the opportunity even left the other person's lips. Like I think
Uh,
there's something to be learned about saying yes to the thing, even when you don't feel like it.
you're a person that used to say no to things? Because I am.
Oh God, yeah. And especially if it was something that I am the sort of person where I will say yes to things that I know that I will be good at.
Yes.
And if I don't think I will be good at it, then it's a hell no. And also the other thing, Chris, and I'm curious on you too. I am actually I guess I would say I'm an extrovert and an introvert.
Hmm.
I need my alone time.
Yes.
And this was really obvious for me over COVID, but I can swing the other way. So if I have too much of my alone time, then I don't want to come out of my cocoon, and that's not healthy either.
Mm,
So there are so many times where my friends would invite me to things or the events, and I'd be like, "No, I don't want to go to that. I don't want to talk to people."
yeah.
When in actuality, study after study after study has shown since the 1940s and 30s to today that the happiest people in the world, it's not about their social status, it's not the car, it's not the clothes, it's not the pants size, it's not the if you won the last fitness competition, it's none of that. What it is it's your connection, your relationships. And I just think that sometimes in our Herculean sprint through life, that's the first thing that we say no to when that's really the thing that'll nourish our
Yeah.
soul.
Well, it's kind of what we were saying earlier, just with the holidays and everything, where it's just almost so stress, adds more stress to yourself just because of you always have to be the extroverted person and be sociable and act a certain way rather than how you would act when you're home alone or just home with your partner or just your two dogs back here just hanging out. But and it's almost just like a little, it's just like so much exerted energy. It's like, man, just give me a little bit of a break but I agree with you that like I think I told you before we started recording that, these relationships and the things we build through our lifetime are the things that when I look back on my deathbed is what I want to be thankful for. But I used to, and sometimes it still comes and haunts me, these little demons, like, don't go to that. That's stupid. Why would you go to a little, and even if it's like a little small party or anything like that. And just because it's just like, what's going to happen? What are people going to say? What if a fight breaks out? What if somebody, belittles you and you're just like, how are you going to handle that? Then what if you turn into an asshole? And so like things like that go in my head. And it's like, well, but usually this me overthinking it. Then when you get there, it's just the perfect time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
As
but
you're talking about the demon in your head, it just makes me think. Did you see that documentary? Oh my god, it's so good. With Jonah Hill, Netflix Stutz.
is that with his psychiatrist or something? I
Yes.
know I haven't. It's in my queue, but I haven't watched it yet, so I know what you mean.
Oh, it's like
I've heard.
salvation
I've heard it's great.
worthy. And I would tell your listeners if they have kids that are of teenage years, watch it with your family because it opens to the door for these conversations that we've never been taught how to have.
Yeah.
And like all of these things that we struggle with, but we run from because we've never been taught how to have the language or to even have the conversation about them. And as you're talking about the demon in here, the asshole that lives in your brain, just makes me think about how in that documentary, the psychiatrist, I can't think of his name now, but he talks about how it's like this evil this evil that we have, the demon in here that we're never taught how to talk to, but you almost need it because you never appreciate the easy things in life. Like when you look back on your life, you never learned the most when shit was going great, easy peasy. Like the moments that you really learned and that it taught you something were those life stripe moments, and that's why you need the devil in there because it's like the good versus the bad. And when you're able to triumph over him, the demon in your mind, like what success is on the other end of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Megan. And I say demons, and it's really, maybe that's a bad word I should say, because I should feel very fortunate and blessed that I'm over here kind of like first world problems. Oh, well, you're complaining about having to go hang out with your friends and stuff, but like you said, like you've did you say you've always been extroverted or introverted?
I
Or,
think I've always been introverted, but I didn't know the language for it.
yeah, and I always thought I was supposed to be an extroverted just because in media and stuff, that's, oh, you're the cool person. You're getting all the
Yes.
attention.
The life of the party.
You're like, yeah, your life of party. You're getting the girls. You're having a good time. You're the center of attention. You're what, men want to be and women want to be with, or whatever that stupid saying is. And that it was like, oh, I have to act a certain way just because that was the thing I'm seeing through media, or just whatever my mind was being projected with. But really, I guess my point is that I notice in myself, and even today, that in small groups I do really well with, just talking, conversations with this happen. But when it gets to these bigger, like, maybe 6 or more people, all of us having dinner and stuff, I don't know if it's just I shut down just because of it's too many people talking, everyone's trying to get their point across, and you know, just trying to say random things. And then it's just like, well, I'll just sit here and just be quiet. Then there's too many people talking and I'm trying to take in what everybody's saying, and it's just not always working. And that's one cool thing about even with these headphones. I've done a couple podcasts with 3 or 4 people, and I can actually listen in my ears exactly who's talking or whatever, and actually give my full attention to them rather than just trying to focus on one person, whatever. But yeah, I guess that's what's my point though, is that, yeah, I think I'm more introverted than I am extroverted, but in certain groups, I feel a little bit, in smaller groups with 6 or less, I feel more extroverted. But when it gets to that, over that, I think I just shut down for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm right there with you. Me too. Me too. But I think the really cool thing is the recognition and the language around it. Like, right?
Yeah.
And once then you can give yourself the whole when you know better, you do better, right? So you can give yourself those cushions of time alone when you need them. And everyone in my life now knows I need my Megan time. And I'll say to my husband, I like need a moment by myself. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you know better, you do better, which is why reason number 787 why I love this community that you're building so much is because we all have stories, each and every one of us.
Mhm.
But it is the courage to share them, and it's the courage to listen to them and know that whatever shit you're going through, you're not going through it alone.
Yes.
And someone
Yes.
else has been through it and can share with you the light that's on the other end of the tunnel because you can't see it when you're in the muck and the murk of it.
Yeah. I mean, going back to your point about Jonah Hill, that, with podcasting and this, community or new type of media, whatever you want to call it, that it's cool to have these conversations that are not necessarily sexy, quote unquote, just because, if you talk about, mental illness, or if drugs should be legalized, or I don't know, abortion or religion or politics, that, you can actually have these long drawn out conversations depending on what show you're on or what format it is. And actually, talk about, your problems and what you've been through and your trials and tribulations, rather than just, depending on what group of people you're in, you might say something that, hey, I had an eating disorder, or hey, I battled drugs through my teenage years, and people were just instantly, label you, and you almost feel just, you're so belittled right then. You try to be vulnerable at a point, but then it's just like it backfired on you. But now it's like people want to listen to it, people want to hear it. And just like what you said, that, oh wait, person A is going through something, and I kind of went through something like this. And I'm glad that there's more recognition coming now. And, it's like a weight off your shoulders, and that's the whole
Yes.
point. It's just so cool to have, and maybe cool is not the right word, but so more mainstream, or I guess cool to have these conversations now. And it's not, now people just don't belittle you or ridicule you just for saying, oh, wait, I'm not really a big fan of Christmas, just like that.
Yes. I think as you're talking, Chris, it just makes me think about the power of vulnerability. I think of my own journey. And when I look back at my corporate career in 15 years, Chris, I look back now and I think, oh my God, I worked shoulder to shoulder with people for 10 fucking years and I knew jack shit about them. I knew that I would go to Matt If I needed this, I would go to Debbie. If I needed this, I would go to Angela if I needed this. But I never knew anything about who they were
Mm.
as a person. And when I had enough courage to begin to share this journey of what I was struggling with, this addiction to achieving, of it being my validation in the world, of never feeling like I was good enough and that I was worthy enough, and all of these things that I was learning, did I find that people began to share with me their own stories. And so the reason that I share that, Chris, is that for any of your listeners that are struggling, or even too, if they are looking at people in their lives and they're like, they have it all together, I'm here to tell you, no one does, first and foremost.
Oh,
Nobody has their shit together. And second of all, there are people in your life that want to support you, that want to help you, that can give you guidance and support, and you don't need to go through it alone. And it can be something as simple as having just a, here's an example. Your boss hands another project on your plate and you are already overwhelmed. It is something as simple as list, because I can remove C, but I cannot do A, B, C, D, and E. Right? It's something as simple as just vocalizing it and putting it out there. And it is amazing how people will show up.
well, Meg, we should go back a little bit. We got into this. We kind of went off to a hot start right there, but this
Yeah.
so the audience knows kind of your backstory and kind of like the hustle culture you went through, and just kind of like the little bit you just said. That why don't you give them the Reader's Digest version of how you got from point A to point B to point C here talking with me, just so they kind of know
Yeah.
what you went through.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so funny, Chris, how a lot of the decisions that we make in life all ties back to our childhood, but it's the shit that we run from that we never deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say I was a C student. I was raised by a single mother in central Pennsylvania. I look back now and I think, holy shit, she was 23, had two kids, single handedly raised them by herself. So a shout out to anyone who was a single mother or is raised by a single parent. You're doing beautiful, beautiful things. Was a chubby kid.
Mm.
I was raised in central Pennsylvania. I had a 600 SAT score, lied about that until I was like full and 40. I like, who cares? Who cares at this point? I had a speech impediment, and I was told by the outside world that I would never amount to much. And I believed it, Chris, for a long, long time, until I got the first whiff of the first thing in my life that I was ever good at. And that was this sales job in hospitality. And like a drug, Chris, like a drug, I was addicted to it, because it made me feel for the first time in my life that I was worthy and I had something to contribute and that I was good at something. And so over the next 15 years, it consumed me like any addiction does.
Of
And here's
course.
the really fucked up part of it, is that in our world, in this hustle culture, we think that doing our jobs well and getting the promotion and going up the next tier is the right thing. And somewhere along the line, you lose yourself and you circumstances behind the wheel. You're not living, you're existing. That
Mm.
is exactly what happened to me. So 15 years go by. I tell myself this story of I'll be happy when. Don't we all do that? I'll
Of
be happy when I
course.
make, right, this pay grade. I'll be happy when I get my body this fit.
Yep.
I'll be happy when I get the relationship, when I drive this car. And then it comes and you're not happy. So you think it's the next tier and the next tier, and it never ends. So
Exactly.
I said that I would be happy when I had this corner office job. When I got this corner office job, running sales for this $1 billion hospitality organization, that'll be the key to all these missing pieces. Well, guess what? I got the job. And as divine or as universe or as God, whatever word you want to use, told me, slapped me upside the head and was like, listen, dummy, that's not the answer. I had a mental breakdown alongside 76.
Oh,
Not
shit.
the best place.
Damn.
Not the best place to have a breakdown. I can tell you that. It's the main highway going in and out of Philadelphia. So it's so funny how, You ever have those life moments that you can go back there in a second? Like back,
Plenty of them.
right,
Yes.
right? Back there in a
Yeah.
second.
Stay right there.
And as I am telling you the story, I can go back into that car 7 years ago with the semi trucks whizzing by and the car shaking and me sobbing, thinking, how did my life get here?
Mm.
I'm popping Lexapro. I'm binge drinking every chance I get. I'm $20,000 in debt because I think the latest thing will fulfill me.
Of
I'm
course.
in loveless relationship after loveless relationship. I am cut off from my friends and family because I cannot stand to hear how good their life is while I'm barely hanging on. And at that moment in time, unbeknownst to me, began this journey of 7 years of getting to know the woman that I never took time to get to know throughout this whole life journey myself. And now I am on a mission to help other high performing go getters that have that inner gut whisper, that tiny whisper that says, I know my life is meant for more, but I'm scared shitless and I do not know where to start on
Yeah.
these small little micro steps that they can do so they can start living again. And it all begins with you, which is the hardest fucking thing because we think it's quitting the job. We think it's moving. We think it's ending the relationship. We think it's dry January. We think it's the fast. And let me tell you this, you are on the other end of all that shit. So
Mm.
you got to work on you before anything else can change in your life.
So, do you think more people being self-aware to themselves is probably the first step? And
The
just
honesty, yes. The yes. And that's the hardest thing. That
yes,
I will say is 80% of the journey is what do you want? Not what the rest of the world's been bullhorning in your ear, but what do you want?
yeah.
And that is very difficult because we've never been taught to ask ourselves that question.
No, no, we're always taught like kind of what we just said earlier, being the cool guy at the party and being the center of attention and what like almost living your life as if you're watching a movie, and just seeing like and not really being able to differentiate between real life and the movie world or even social media now, just because, like you just talked about like with the hustle culture and you have these people like I'm not gonna say any names, but you have these people who promote how work 18 hours a day, then you'll have the Rolex and the Lamborghini and the fancy house and living in the Hamptons or whatever it is. And I think when young people, and not even young people, but anybody who's maybe in a hard way looking for a change or whatever you want to say, when they see that thing, say, the mind is a sponge, they just grab onto it and just like, okay, wait, if I do this exactly like this for X amount of years, I will have all this. I'll have the house in the Hamptons or whatever it is and people want. But then they get so caught up in it that life keeps going on and they don't realize that maybe this is part of the dark triad or is that right? Yeah, the dark triad or the dark arts even that, they don't understand what the dark road they're going down on. And then
Yeah.
they find themselves on the side of 76, like what the fuck just happened, and having a
Yes.
breakdown. And I'm not saying that's everybody, but I think it's a lot of people, especially with people who are easily influenced and easily just they don't really have an idea of where they want to go in life. Well, I heard that there's a stupid quote out there, you can't really know where you're going in life until you know where you've been. And, if you start thinking about it, that to me, it's just like, okay, where have I been? And, how did I react in certain situations and how did I feel? And did I like that or did I not like that? And if I didn't like it, why do I keep doing it? Just because I get satisfaction from society or culture or my friends? Like,
Yeah.
no. But I've never been in that situation, and I've been more of the straight narrow kind of hey, go to school, get a job, live out your life, and you'll be happy and all that good stuff. And it wasn't until I guess the pandemic when life kind of slowed down for me is where I started wondering myself is hey, am I happy? Am I good where I wanted to be? Is this what I thought my life was going to be like? And so that's kind of why I started the podcast. I wanted to try something to do like a little venture on my own rather than just going through what the status quo of what everyone tells me I needed to be doing was. And then I'm not saying I went through any hard times or any bad times and that there's a lot of people who go through some really shitty times, but it was just me personally just putting life on hold for a second and just taking a break and just like, let's see here. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. Now, where can I go and move to where I think I can either have a growth mindset, better myself, and finally figure out what does Chris want. And I don't mean to talk about myself in third person, but yeah. And that was kind of the thing for me. And that's why I started, basically one of the reasons why I started the podcast, just to have these cool conversations with you and learn about what other people go through and learn about, hey, life isn't always gummy bears and raindrops and or rainbows, whatever it is. And just, yeah, and just see what happens, man. And yeah, let's see what it's like, man. Let's live it, man. Matthew McConaughey, Livin, right?
And I love how you talked about this came to be, this community was built through COVID. That is one of the greatest gifts I think COVID gave us was the shit that you've been running from, you were forced to deal with because you had nowhere to turn to. And I also feel that not only were we forced to deal with these gut whispers of, am I happy? Is this the right move for me? Like, what's next? All of that. But it also gave people the courage to be like, fuck it. We've been wanting to do A, B, C in our lives for so long. Let's do it. What are we waiting for? Yeah. And I think that was such a lesson. And Chris, I want to go back to what you were talking about with social media, because I think that it is such a, it can really fuck with you on feeling like you are less than. Listen, I want to share with all the listeners out there, I still struggle with that. And I am in this space of helping people live their truth and their best lives. And I can get on Instagram and see the Mel Robbins, the Brene Browns, the Marie Folios of the world with all of these likes and all of these followers and feel like, well, that's not going to happen for me. You see, so just the other day, let me share this story. Just the other day, I had saw Heather Monahan is this speaker, and she had posted something about how she's 41 and da 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 da. And the first thing I think of, Chris, the first thing I think of is, fuck, I'm almost 40 and I don't have what she has. That will never happen for me. That is the first thing you think of. I think we need to train ourselves to say, if she can do it, if he can do it, then so can I. And your timeline is your own timeline. You can't judge your life by someone else's life that does not look like yours and that you do not know the full story. And so one of the things that I have done, which has been a game changer in my life, is it was my husband got it for me as a gift, a little bathroom phone charger.
Nice.
Before I go to bed at night, that is where the phone goes. So I am not like 96% of us. There was a time, Chris, when I was sleeping with the phone like under my pillow. How horrible is that?
I don't doubt it. I've heard stories.
Right. So I'm not answering the emails. I'm not sending the emails right before I go to bed. I'm not shopping for shit I don't need. And I'm not scrolling Instagram going to bed feeling like I am less than. So I would tell your listeners, if they want to make just one small change in their life, get a bathroom phone charger from Amazon. $20, put your phone there before bed. You will sleep like a rock star. And also then the second, on the flip side of that, when you get up in the morning, if you use your phone like your alarm, which so many of us do, it forces you to get your ass out of bed instead of hitting the snooze for 47 times and feeling like shit, even though you might have got 7 hours of sleep because you're jacking up your sleep cycles. You get up, you keep the first promise to yourself, and you have to turn that alarm off. It's amazing what those two things will do for the way you go to sleep and the way you wake up.
Yeah. And to your point, man, I mean, I love technology. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my full-time job is information technology, but I wonder, where the future is going to go with technology, and that it's like the wild, wild west. We're already seeing, there's a book, The Coddling of the American Mind, where, teenage girls are kind of having trouble with social media just because they act a certain way, and the mental illness it's already causing, and the cyberbullying and all this stuff. But, with the future of it, it's made life better. It's made life easier. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I don't want to completely knock it, but I'm one of those guys too that I mean, even still to this day, when I do the podcast, is like the only time when I actually have an hour plus free of just not sitting there scrolling randomly on Instagram. I mean, even when I'm watching one of my favorite shows or whatever, that I just kind of pick up my phone and start just go through Instagram and say, wait, what the fuck am I doing? Like why? And why? I don't get it. Like it's habitual now, which makes zero sense to me why this started happening, but it doesn't make sense, or it does make sense just because I constantly do it. And I guess, and it's like almost no reason for when anybody's bored right now, just when they have nothing to do, that's the first thing they do. When they're just waiting in line, everyone's just got their head down, looking through stuff. But to my point, I guess, is that in the future of where people don't really know the full effects of this stuff, with hours of screen time and sleeping with the phone or right beside you and watching, random reels before you go to sleep, and what it's the actual harm is it really doing, and real quick though, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but do you know what Chart GPT is? I think it's what it's called.
No.
Okay, so this is I don't know if I'll be able to pull up here. I'm not going to take the time and give some dead air, but if I don't, I'll tell you. I'll send you the link later. So anyway, what it is like the new craze right now is open artificial intelligence, right?
Oh my God, that shit, it scares the shit out of me. Keep going.
Right now, it's still it's got a leash on it. And so basically what it is, like certain public schools are actually starting to outlaw it or ban it, just because it's like the new Google. You can go in there and you ask it, what makes a good podcast or something like that, right? And it'll give you a few seconds and it'll start to write out a whole thing, like ask these type of questions, have certain topics to speak on that are great, stuff like that. It gives you a full detailed outline. And then if you can say, hey, you can say, all right, I need something to make it more funny, right? It goes ahead and starts giving you that now. You can even, like, students are even going and just copying and pasting their questions from their homework into it. And it gives you like how it came up with the answer, and like, oh, the correct answer is C.
And then we can't even do basic math anymore. We are screwed. You ever go in to get change somewhere and like the person behind the counter is all confused, and you're like, hey, listen,
yes,
it's a quarter.
Yes, they look at it and they're just like, if they don't have the thing to tell them what to give it back.
Yes.
I've worked in retail all through college, and now it's just like almost like, hey, it's 24 cents. Oh yeah. They're like, they act like, oh yeah, I was going to get it or whatever. But it's just like, if they don't see it up there or read it, they're just like, and that's one of the blessings of working in retail, is that sometimes you have to do on the fly math like that.
Yeah.
So, yes, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, and then again, you can have it write you a full detailed paper about the War of 1812, and like, I don't even know how you differentiate between humans writing and now artificial intelligence. So I guess that's what I was kind of asking about technology and stuff. It's like, where is it going? Are we just going to become, like you said, we're just going to be completely useless people and just let artificial intelligence, or just rely on machines to, I know this podcast isn't about this, but it just blew my mind today going through this stuff and listening to other people talk about it. And it's wild.
There was a time in my life where I felt like it was consuming me. What do they call it when it shows you like how long you've been on certain apps on your phone, the screen time. I was like, no fucking way. Oh my, it was terrifying. It was like my whole life was spent behind a screen, either behind a screen at work during the day, behind the screen, any iota of a moment I had. Hell, we even take our phones into the bathrooms with us. Right. So we sure do. So what I had to start to do was I put the screen time, what do they call it, where it's like shuts down your phone, the screen limits.
Yeah.
And I will tell your listeners, it was very difficult. At first, I thought I could just put them on. I was ignoring that shit. But here is the power of a microstep. And this is why I love microsteps, because it's not about the big leaps. It's about these small little things that'll make you feel like a rock star, and it'll have you showing up for more. It's a thing called the habit loop. You can look it up. So I would say start in 30-minute increments. If you go to bed at 9:00, put the screen limit on at 8:30. You go to bed at 10:00, put the screen limit on at 9:30. And that works for a week. Then you're like, great, maybe I'll put it up to 9. Maybe I'll put it up to 8. It's just the small little steps.
Yes.
The other thing that was so powerful in our household, and again, it's these sometimes when things are so simple, we defute them because we think that shit has to be so complicated and it has to be so hard that if it's simple, it can't be that easy, right? Like we defute it. And so at night, when my husband and I, if we are both home and we are having dinner, we put the phones away. We have a little basket, and it is he and I having dinner. And we
Nice.
play the high low game, which is what was your high and what was your low of the day. And starts conversation. And I think that's something that is so lacking around so many dinner tables today is those moments as we were talking about earlier, Chris. It's not about the things, it's about the moments. And in the Herculean sprint of our days to do, be, achieve more, get the likes, answer the emails, feel, get the status quo of life, we forget the power, the connection of those in our lives and just how that can feed our soul in a way that we never would at the end of the project, or regardless of the likes, or regardless of the square footage of your home. So I would say start that practice with your family. Sit around the table if you can. I don't care what the hell you eat. Just sit around the table and have a conversation. What was your high and what was your low without the phones? And it'll change the dynamic of your household.
Do you think, or do you ever look back, I guess, and ever think that, if you having that mental breakdown on the side of 76 or whatever the interstate was, I think you said, that it was almost a blessing because you would have been
Yes.
to start to like, because you have a really good head on your shoulders and you really seem to think things out now and decide that, hey, I'm doing stuff for a reason rather than just to do it just because it's the cool thing, whatever. But do you think ever that you already said yes, but if you wouldn't have had that experience, you would have never became the person you are now?
Oh, absolutely. And Chris, I think that's with anything with life. Anything you go through in life, it turns you into the person that you were meant to be. And it's often those hard, mucky times that you hate going through it, but there's so much power on the other end of it. So for instance, I grew up without my father. I had his struggles and was not involved in my life from when I was really 5 all the way up until the other year, which was, 35. And for the longest time in my life, Chris, I harbored so much resentment and anger. And I was very much, I will handle life alone because no one will hurt me again like that. So I had walls built up so thick that I didn't even realize it. And I say all that to say that now at almost 40, I can look back and I can think, thank goodness that that happened the way that it did, because it turned me into the woman that needed to be. And I think that all of us have those building blocks of life. And it's often the most difficult moments that really give you the resiliency. It gives you the toolkit. It gives you the language. It gives you the life tattoo marks that brings you into your path and your purpose.
Mm. Is there a power to independence though?
I will say for me in my journey, everything I can look back now and thank God, like I would not change a thing. Um, I stumbled a lot. I mean, hell, there was one point in my life, Chris, where I couldn't even afford a bagel.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. But I will say that I had to go through all of that. I met my husband. We met 5 years ago. We got married last year. I'm 39 and I would not change a thing because I had to go through all of those things. So I could be the woman that I am and that I could show up in this relationship and I could appreciate him for the man he is, because you never appreciate the good without the bad.
Mm. And that's one thing that I never wish for people to go through bad situations, and I guess why I asked that was just because that I think there is a need to, take a loss in life and go through bad, shitty situations even though I don't want it, because there's terrible, terrible situations that people grow up in, and I would never wish that on anybody. But knowing what you're going through and knowing that, hey, if you keep hopefully moving and keep grinding, that there's something on the other end to find your happiness and find what you really want out of life, rather than just saying, okay, well, this is my life. I guess I'll just deal with it, figure it out from here. But I don't. So yeah, I mean, I think people, and it seems like anybody with great stories all have been through some really shitty, hard times in their life, and they've come out stronger on the other end. And that's what made them, not, that's what made them a great person, I guess, even though they were almost like you were talking about earlier, like you were basically set up to not be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's all on what you make of it. Like I think this is a Tony Robbins quote, but it has always stuck with me. The first problem that we ever have as humans is thinking we shouldn't have problems. Of course, of course, of course you're gonna have problems. Like, well, that's life. But here's what's really cool. You're in control of how you react to it.
Yes.
And no one can take that from you. You have the power. You hear of people all the time, to your point, Chris, that have gone through really shitty situations and have wound up on the other end, leading just this beautiful life and coming into their power. Like I always think about Oprah's story. I mean, look at her.
Of course.
You want to talk about someone who was told they wouldn't have a chance in life. Look at how she ended up not too shabby. But then you also hear on the other side of that people that were given these amazing opportunities in life, whether that be an athlete, whether that be someone who was born with a silver spoon in their mouth and then fuck it all up. Like, look at all these celebrities, kids that just keep fucking shit up because everything's been handed to them, right? It is all on what you do with your situation, I guess is what I am trying to say. And you are in control of that. And it is all up to you with these decisions and these habits that you make in your life.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking this, though, because I know, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I know now you're obviously a professional speaker, and you help people out. But you said earlier you had a speech impediment and
Yeah.
you were young. I mean, and you're over it. I mean, being a professional speaker, and I would never, if you never would have told me that, I would never said like, oh yeah, she had a speech impediment when she was young. I mean, what was the story behind that? I mean, how did you get over that, or how did you?
Yeah. Isn't that so interesting? Isn't
Yeah,
that
well, to me,
so?
now it just hit my mind. I was like, damn, yeah, she's right. You talking about getting over stuff and moving on and going through these shitty situations. And I was like, damn, and having that when you were a young child, and just the bullying you probably, and I'm guessing, I'm
Yeah.
speculating here just because I've, again, that's what I've seen with other people who've had it during my times in elementary and high school stuff. So yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's gonna, I mean, when I look back on my life, I think, yeah, I mean, holy shit, the speech impediment, I was a chubby kid, the last kid to be picked for dodgeball. Was raised by a single parent, so we didn't have much. But I will tell you, Chris, I don't know if I blocked it out or what, but I don't remember so much of the bullying as I do the low self-esteem.
Uh,
I I will say that I even still now to this day can struggle with low self-esteem at certain points.
that,
And I think we all do. The most confident people
y'all,
still struggle
y'all do.
with that. So for me, it's been this journey. You have to check out this documentary with Jonah Hill. They also talk about like this shadow self. And for me, that really hit home as you talk about this younger version of me. And in this documentary, they unpack this version of ourselves that we run from and we hide from. And it makes all these decisions in our days, and we're so fearful to unpack it. And Jonah Hill talks about for him, it was when he was at his heaviest and he was abusing drugs and alcohol. And for me, it's that younger girl who just felt so abandoned in life, who felt like she was not good enough, who felt like she would never have anything to give. And she was just so desperate for someone to love her. And I just think that's so powerful when you're able to talk about the person that you've been running from your whole life with is which is a past version of you. I
Yes.
know, heavy shit, isn't it?
Yes.
It's heavy shit.
And I'm glad I asked that just because, you know, we all have our past, and we all have. I don't know if we're all trying to escape our past, but it's like I think you said earlier, nobody's lived a perfect life, and there's no life manual to what we're doing here. But I mean, and even with people who are in the seem to be the most popular, most successful at whatever age you are, but they still have their demons, and that's one thing that. And I think when I asked you earlier about, how do you feel when you are being complimented? Because, I mean, I'm, above average at CrossFit. I do pretty well. And just, I get a lot of compliments towards it, but it seems like, and not only that, but just, with the podcast and with, almost, and that's just because with everything I do in life, I want to do it well.
Yeah.
But it's just me. It's just kind of my mindset. It's just type of the people I listen to and their podcasts I listen to. It's just like, I love it. I love people doing hard shit and figuring it out and, becoming greater on the other end of it. And just like, and there, Peter Attia, he's a doctor, and this might be going a little off my topic or my point here, but he's got this theory that if you keep doing hard things in life, and I'm not saying go climb Mount Everest or anything like that, but if you keep your mind active every day and you play Wordle and you live a healthy lifestyle, I don't know why I said play Wordle, but just basically if you challenge your mind every day, it's a key to, did you freeze up on me? Oh, you're back. Okay, cool. Sorry. So my internet likes to freeze up sometimes. But anyway, yeah, my point is that Peter Attia likes to talk about if you do hard things and challenge yourself every day, that's one of the keys to longevity. And that, and going back a little bit though, and to my point is that, when I get compliments and stuff, it kind of makes me feel weird just because I was always not that guy who got compliments. I was always never the guy who was actually told like, hey, I'm proud of you or I appreciate you. And like, it was just kind of just the person, I was just told this to be there just because I was either had to be there or just because that's just what you did, because, hey, you're the younger person, you go lift all the heavy stuff and you go just do all the work that nobody else wants to do and stuff like that. And maybe those are poor examples, but I just remember, and like the times I have been told like, hey man, that really impressed me, or hey, I'm proud of you. Like I remember those times and it sticks with me. And so, but when like, I guess when it starts to get a little over the top, I'm just like, fuck, wait, are they just saying this shit or what? And yeah, and I guess I don't know really, that's my whole point. I kind of think I've lost the whole plot.
Well, I do think though, Chris, that when you are good at something, you think everyone's good at it because it comes organically to you. Like we as humans have a very difficult time seeing our own gifts and talents. And I do think there is something to be complimented on something you think, really? Like that?
Yeah.
But it's hard for you to see something that you're so good at because it just comes organically to you as part of your gifts, and other people don't have that. It's very hard for us to be this sort of self-reflective. But I will say, depending on gender too, it's really interesting. Women, I have found, and I hand raised, I am guilty of this. Someone gives you a compliment on your clothes, and your first thing you say is, "Oh, this was on sale." Like you discount it. Someone gives you a compliment on your hair, and you're like, "Really? I didn't wash it today." Like women are so quick to discount a compliment for themselves. Like, "Oh, you look great." Really, I don't feel it. It is pay attention. It is such a knee jerk reaction that we feel we need to defute it. And I think for men, and I'd be curious your take, Chris, on this, is that I don't think you're really ever socialized to take a compliment. Like men are supposed to be tough and strong, and we don't talk about emotions. Would you agree?
I do agree. And and I'm generally speaking, and because there are men out there who just don't give a fuck if they share, put their heart on their shoulder or whatever the thing is, and or lay their whole heart out there. But there is like when I grew up, and I think you said you're almost 40 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a young 36, so I'm not far behind you. But that I grew up in kind of this mentality where, I grew up in a very rural area, and it was just straight farmland, no stoplights. My best friends were miles away. And so literally when I was home, it was either just kind of watch TV and play video games and go outside. And, I played basketball outside, but I was by myself a lot playing. But anyway,
Yeah.
So I grew up watching all these like, 80s kind of hero movies and, tough guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger and, Rocky and Sylvester Stallone doing their thing. And, it's just like, oh, you got to be a certain way, you got to be tough or whatever. And then if you did start to kind of wear your heart on your shoulder and say something that you were really like, hey, I feel like shit today, or I feel weird, I feel bad. It was almost like, well, why? And it's like, then you start to say it, it's like, well, you don't need to feel that way. You're fine. It's
Yeah.
oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just go hot or whatever. But but again, I mean, and even when and that was just kind of like how childhood was. Okay, I got to be tough. You're tough. That's what guys do. You just if you get hurt and scar on your knee, just rub some dirt in it, walk it off. You're good to go. Give me my coach's pat. I'm fine. You get whatever. It's no big deal. And you don't cry in front of people and all that good stuff. But I guess, and even talking about compliments and stuff, that I started losing my hair right after college, and that's why I started shaving my head. But that's kind of what really I was really so worried about was like, what are people going to think? I'm only 20. I think I was 24 or 25, and that what do I do? I'm losing my hair at 24 or 25, and it's just male pattern baldness. It just runs in my family. It's what
Yeah.
happens. But it freaked me out so much. Like, what are people going to think? And I don't want them to to call me an egghead or whatever they do, but yeah, I mean, you're right though, that for certain people, guys are always supposed to act a certain way, and almost like you're not really even supposed to compliment guys like, oh man, that's a cool shirt, bro. Like I guess right now it's probably cool, but back in the day it was kind of like, man, that's weird. Have you ever heard? So in college it was a lot of this, and I don't care. Well, if I say, I guess nobody's gonna care if I say this, but you would say no homo. Have you ever heard?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like when in college, like with my roommates and stuff, if you said, "Hey, cool shoes, dude," and you had to say no homo after it, just so they wouldn't say you were gay or whatever. But it was just stuff like that. I was like, wait, what? Like, we're just, hey man, they're cool shoes. Not like I'm saying like, hey man, let's
Right.
go upstairs and get after it. It's just so
Right.
yeah, so I guess that's kind of my take and my perspective on it. And I don't know if that's good or if that's bad, but yeah, it's just little things like that that kind of always played in my head, and it's just like, but now when you think about it at an older age, it's just that it's really not that big of a deal.
No.
Yeah,
No.
it's like cool. You said nice shoes, man. It's like somebody brought up a good point the other day that in sports, they give the coaches pat, right? A slap on the ass, like, hey, good job, good game, or whatever. But nobody ever says anything about it. Like it's an acceptance, like a sports acceptance across all sports and men's games. I don't know about women's, but yeah, it's like, where did that come from? Why do people have to pat somebody on the ass and say good game or whatever? And like, and if you don't do it, some people get upset about it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of, I don't know where I was really going with that point, but that was just one of those things that, like, in a male perspective, that it's cool to slap people. I got your friend on the ass, but if you want to compliment their shoes, like back in my college years, it was always weird to do that.
That's one of the things I love, 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 love about aging. I think that fear of what other things slowly start to fade away. The older that you get and the lessons that you learn, the more that you become more confident in who you are.
Mm.
Now, I can say at almost 40, there's something about 40. I don't know what it is, but that's like, the age that John Foley founded Peloton. That's when Vera Rang um, did her first wedding dress. I think that's when Ray Kroc founded McDonald's, or maybe he was in his 50s. But still, there's something like later in life that you come into your own and you just stop giving a fuck. I know for me at this age, when I look back, my 20s, it was all around wanting to fit in.
Yes.
My 30s, it was all around the comparison game. Who's getting married? Who's having the kids? Who has the suburban house? It's all around these task marks of life and these checklists and who's hitting it and who isn't. It's such a comparison roller coaster. At least it was for me. And I can say now at 39, I I have stopped comparing myself to everyone else and now am listening to my gut intuition tell me about what I should do, be, want, achieve, and have the courage to listen to it.
Is that some of the best advice you've kind of received, is don't compare yourself to others?
It's easier said than done, like everyone says
Of
that, but
course
it's
it's
of course, of course.
not. Of course.
Just like rest. Like I hate when people are like, hit pause and rest. You cannot live your life at 100 miles per hour and then all of a sudden hit the pause button and just relax. Like it's fine. You can't. You're so used to going so fast, so quick. You can't just hit the pause. Like it's we talk about these big broad stroke things. Like I also hate this one. This one gets under my skin. Self-care. It's not the fluff and bubble bath. It's not the nails. It's not the day of golf. To me, what self-care is are you taking care of you every day, or are you putting yourself on the back burner and everyone else's wants, needs, and expectations of you go first?
Mm.
That to me is self-care. Where are you on your list of to-dos? And are you keeping yourself there as life gets busy during your day? That's self-care. It's not the fluff and bubble bath.
Meg, what do you do for self-care? I mean, what is your day like? I mean,
Yeah.
do you meditate? Do you read? I mean, like, I know you said you like your alone time. I mean, do you put on some sweet music and just chill? I mean, what's your thing? I mean,
I love this question. And for the listeners that are still sticking around with us, thank you, because this is the sweet spot right here.
hmm,
There are 3 micro steps that I say if anyone wants to change their life and if anyone wants to start to feel more inspired, fulfilled, connected, this is what you do. And it's simple as shit. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Micro step 1, you make time for you. What do I mean by that? It is getting up at the first alarm when the alarm rings. It's keeping that first promise to yourself in the morning. It is when you told yourself that you were going to go for the walk at 12 o'clock and all of your calls went over and it's now 12:30. It's not saying fuck it. It's keeping it and doing that walk for yourself. It is putting pen to paper before the rest of the world gets a hold of you. 95% of us wake up, and the first thing that we do is we scroll through the phone to check the emails, to check the social feeds, to listen to the news. 3 minutes of that, Chris, 3 minutes is all it takes to have a 70% higher chance of having a bad day.
Mm,
So instead of scrolling the feeds, instead of checking the email, take 5 minutes and put pen to paper on how you're feeling in here before the rest of the world gets in there. Make one promise to yourself and keep it. So that is so step 1 is making time for you. Key 2 is keeping that promise to yourself regardless of what happens during the day. If you told yourself that you were going to take the salsa dancing class even though it was 4:30 on a Tuesday and everyone keeps trying to jam shit in your calendar, you don't accept the calendar invite and you go and you keep that appointment. It is keeping these promises to yourself. And then the third key is you do that consistently and your life will start to change. I know that is a lot. So I have a free gift for your listeners, Chris. They just go to Megan, MEGAN hyphen Miller, MILLER.com. It's the Microstep Journal. It is the 4-step process that I've been doing every day for 7 years. And it has been a game changer. You can do it in 5 minutes. You can do it in 10 minutes. You can do it in 15 minutes. The time doesn't matter. It just matters that you do it.
mm. That's awesome stuff, Megan. You're a badass person. I know that.
Oh, Chris, you're the
Um,
best.
Yeah, no, I kept you for longer than I probably should have, but I know you just plugged your website. But if you want people to find you in any other way or anything else you want to plug in general, just do it.
Yeah. I would say to anyone that wants more of this content or is intrigued, I would love to welcome you to this community. It's intentional living of micro steps so you can start to peel back those gut whispers that you're terrified to lean into and go to the website. It is the best place to find out everything around this movement, megan-miller.com. You can join our podcast community, Attention to Intention. You can join our Instagram community. You can get on our Microstep Monday newsletter. You can download the Microstep journal, the 4 steps, all of it lives there. So just go check us out. Welcome. We welcome you with open arms and know that you're not on this journey alone.
You are awesome. I'm glad we did this. Thanks for having a little chat with me tonight. Like I said, you're a badass person, Megan. I'm glad we did this.
Oh, Chris, you're the best. And rocking it in an amazing sweatshirt tonight, looking like $1,000,000
Thank
and
you.
showing up with such authenticity and vulnerability. That is really cool shit. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, we're out here, folks. See ya.
Bye.